Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. Thanks very much for joining our latest in a series of webinars. We've done a number of these now. You can find the previous ones that we've done on everything from financial services and self-sovereign identity, guardianship, digital wallets, cryptography, and even more on Evanim's YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and see some of the things we've done before, please check that out. Today, we're delighted to be talking about SSI, self-sovereign identity in higher education, a topic that's garnering a huge amount of interest around the world at the moment. I'm Andy Tobin. I'll be hosting the webinar today. I've been working on SSI for 4 years now, which makes me a veteran, I think. And been at Evanim all that time, and I'll be responsible for running the webinar today, but not alone actually. I have my colleague Jamie Smith. So Jamie, would you like to do a quick intro?
Hi everyone, I am Jamie Smith. I lead our work on education here at Evanim, but I also do a bunch of business development and work on some of our larger engagements like ecosystems and so on. But we'll talk about more of that coming up.
Very cool, thanks Jamie. Okay, so what's the agenda we've got for you today? Well, firstly, we're going to give you a quick and really simple refresher on what self-sovereign identity, SSI, is and why it's important. Then we'll give you a short demo just to bring it to life. And after that, we're going to discuss the specific implications for students, for lifelong learning, and for the higher education sector itself. Lastly, we're going to tell you how you can get started, how you can start benefiting from all of the opportunities that SSI brings you. We're seeing this hockey stick growth curve kicking off. In fact, 2020 has just started amazingly. We've seen more inquiries, more interest than we've ever come across before. There are tools now available for you to build SSI into your organization and into all your digital relationships. So we'll give you a bit of information about that as well. If you've got any questions, and this is the second of these webinars we've done today, the first one was amazing, loads of questions came in. So if you do have any questions, Zoom has a Q&A facility. So there's a chat and there's also a Q&A. The Q&A one is probably the one to use. Just drop your questions in there and Alex on our team is going to gather all those up and we'll cover as many of them as we can once the formal bit of the webinar is done. So any questions, put them in the Zoom Q&A, please. So, let's begin. Universities, higher education establishments already equip students with the education and the tools they need to succeed in their work lives and their adult lives. But what if they could go a step further and arm their students with the tools needed to succeed in all aspects of their digital lives? Students, we know these days, they're digital first, they're digital natives, they expect and deserve better technology than has been offered to them to date. So what if universities could give their students a tool that allows them to exist in the digital world with confidence, dignity, and respect? If students could use that to prove who they are to anyone, anywhere, and to have the ability to interact with each other, with organizations, with the university, securely online, collect and share their qualifications, and seamlessly log into university systems. And if they could use that same capability outside the university system, in their employment, in their social lives, in the gaming worlds that they inhabit, how fantastic would that be as well? So not only would this make students' lives easier, it would make recruiting easier, it would make course registration easier, it would combat fraud, it would address a whole suite of security issues. And it would also equip them with a powerful capability they need throughout their post-education lives, into their adult lives, into their work lives. So all sounds great. How could it be possible? Well, very simply, there's a new way to move and prove data. It's a new way of privately and securely sharing data with individuals, for individuals to share data with organizations, and it's got this name, self-sovereign identity, or SSI. That seems to have stuck, but it's much more than just about identity. It's a new way for people to manage and control their digital personas with privacy and dignity that doesn't really exist in the online world at the moment. It's all based on a new set of open standards that will work anywhere. It's not just about universities or colleges. This is something that will work equally well in the workplace, at your bank, with your mobile phone company, when interacting with the government, or even at home. So what we're going to do is a quick refresher on what SSI is and some of the things that underpin it. And first of all, there's a little bit of terminology to get our heads around. And the first bit of terminology is credentials. We all carry credentials with us at the moment, physical credentials, bank cards, a driving license, a passport. Some of them we keep in our pockets and in our bags and our wallets all the time. Some of them we keep in a drawer. We just take it out when we travel. Some might stay in a filing cabinet or a safe until we need them. But they're ours. They've been given to us by all sorts of organizations. Anyone can give us any credential about anything already. And we have them, and we control who we show them to and when we show them to people. These credentials we have already, these physical credentials, they do one common thing. They answer a question, and that question is, says who. So I can tell a university, hey, I'm Andy Tobin, but what they really want to know is, does someone I trust, like the passport office, say this is Andy Tobin? So they're answering this question, says who? Who says Andy is Andy? And there is a common global standard for credentials already, and it's paper. Okay, plastic is good too. But we already have ways to carry credentials with us, paper, plastic. That's how we do it now in the physical world. But there's a problem. In the online world, these physical credentials don't work. Since the internet began, there's been no open, standardized digital equivalent of paper credentials. And the vast majority of all the problems we see online, they have their root in this issue that there is no way to establish in a standardized way trust about who you're dealing with online. So that's the problem we're trying to solve. So it seems so simple, right? The solution, though, has eluded us until very recently, but it should be really simple that whenever you get a physical credential, like a bit of paper or a driving license, why can't you get a digital one at the same time? You could carry it with you wherever you go in your phone and use it wherever you want, and just like you're able to use your physical credentials. But now, because it's digital, you can use it at a distance. You can use it online. You can use it without the other person being present. So these digital credentials, because they're digital, they can be even better than paper ones. You're all familiar with the watermarks on a passport or a banknote and the special holograms and so on. Well, digital credentials can have cryptographic versions of those that give them superpowers that allow you to do things you couldn't do before. And these superpowers, they enable anyone, anywhere, to verify the authenticity of some digital data, whatever sort it is, whether it's a passport or a student ID or a movie ticket or access to a lab, and confirm who issued that data to that person, the fact it was issued only to that person that's presenting it and not to anyone else, they haven't stolen it from someone, and that data hasn't been tampered with. That capability brings a really interesting future, a future where a business can onboard a new and genuine customer with one click, a frictionless user experience, but without compromising security. In fact, being able to increase the level of security for that transaction. It's a world where users won't have hundreds of usernames and passwords to remember. And multi-factor authentication and high security is the default, not the exception. It's a world where phishing is a thing of the past, because there's no intermediaries anymore. There's no connection brokers between me and who I'm trying to interact with. It's a direct connection. Nobody can insert themselves in the middle. And every relationship, every digital relationship is unique, secure, and private. This is what self-sovereign identity is. So in the higher education world, this capability can fundamentally transform the learner experience, and it underpins the promise of lifelong learning. And Jamie will dig into this in a lot more detail shortly. But before we get to that, we just want to bring it to life a little bit. The vast majority of you, I'm sure, have never seen a self-sovereign identity credential. What does it look like? Let's demystify it a little bit. We're going to tell you about a whole suite of use cases in a minute, but here for this demo, we're just going to focus on a couple, which is issuing a credential to someone and then somebody being able to use that credential to prove something about themselves. We've done it as a video here just because demos, right? But you can do this yourself live right now. Our demo site is try.connect.me. You can download our Android or iOS credential wallet called connect.me, and you can do exactly this, okay? But let's just show you what it looks like. And I'm not going to do the whole thing here, but I'll just show you the situation. So the scenario is we have a student, they've joined the university through the normal methods, and the university is now saying, oh, you know, we've got this amazing new way that we can securely and privately speak to you online. Do you want to participate in that? Do you want to connect to us? So we've got a fairly general university website, and if we press that button, you're going to see the phone come up on the right hand side. The Connect Me app is in there. This is our digital wallet app, and this is based on open standards. It's got some functions in there that allow you to make connections, see those connections, and exchange credentials. So I'm just going to pause that quickly here. What's happening here is the university is saying, you know, would you like to connect to us using this new method? Now, I'm already logged into this university website. They know who I am through the existing processes we've got. But here, we're going to ramp things up a bit. So this is a secure digital connection happening. Done. Okay. There's now a private secure connection between me and the university. It's unique. There's nobody else in the way. There's no WhatsApp in the middle. There's no Facebook in the middle. There's no email server in the middle. I have this private secure connection between me and the university. So I'll just pause there a second as well. So imagine now we move on 3 years. I've sweated. I've done my degree. I'm sitting on my sofa. I've just seen what my marks are going to be. I'm really delighted. I've got a big pizza and so on. And I now want to get a digital version of my degree that I've just spent 3 years of hard effort working on. So here it comes. The university issues it to me, and it looks like this. And this is a digital credential. That was quick. Gone, right? So it's accepted as quickly as that. And I'll show it to you again in a second. But basically, a digital credential is a set of data attributes that are specially signed in a particular way that allows anyone to verify the authenticity of this data. That stays on my phone, okay? That interaction is between me and the university. There's nobody else in the middle there. So fantastic, I've got that. Now I could use that for anything, just like I could use a piece of paper for anything. But the next stage of the demo is I'm going to go and get a job. Okay, so I'm sitting there at home now. I've realized I actually need to earn some money, and I browse onto Acme's website, and they've got a junior software engineer job going. So I apply for it. How do I apply? Well, firstly, I'll make a secure connection to them. Scan that. That's it. There's no usernames or passwords here whatsoever, okay? Once I'm connected, they still don't know who I am. So they are now going to send me a request for some data. And they want to know, you know, who I am and have I just, you know, got a degree? Am I properly qualified? And there it is. They say, we want to know your student name, your grade point average, where you went to college, and so on. So my app already has this data. It pulls it from the credentials it has. And I could have hundreds of credentials from many different organizations here, but just for the simplicity of this demo, I've just got the one from the university. Here's the data that the university's given me. I can now send that straight back to Acme. No forms to fill in whatsoever. And the unique thing here is Acme is able to verify that that data I give them is authentic. It's genuine, it came from the university, it's not been edited, it's not been changed. So I'm going to pause it there. There are a few more steps in that Acme will then give me another credential saying I'm employed by them, and I can then use that to get a car loan and so on. But that's what it looks like. It's really, really simple, it's really fast. And we think just that simplicity and convenience, if you layer on the security on top of it, it makes it even more compelling. So that's a quick demo for you, just to show you what it looks like. Underpinning this capability, as I said earlier on, is a set of open standards and open source software. So this isn't just Evanim's gig here. If you decided you wanted to build an app like the one you've just seen, there's open source code and open standards you can use to do that. In fact, there are many organizations building now on top of this, this open source capability. So there's two standards you need to be aware of, both of which are being worked on at the World Wide Web Consortium. The first is a standard for verifiable credentials, which is how you package up and exchange that information with these cryptographic superpowers I mentioned earlier on. The second is called decentralized identifiers, or DIDs, and they're one of the key building blocks. They're a bit like a URL that you use for the web, but for people, and we create our own identifiers here. I won't go into much technical detail on it. There's plenty more on the Evanim website. There's white papers and so on you can go and have a look at. But just be aware that this is open standard capability, so anyone can work on it. And just like with the internet, anyone can improve it. There are also a whole set of open source libraries that are under the Linux Foundation. So Evanim, how do we get involved in this? Well, we basically wrote 90% of the DID standard, contributed heavily to the verifiable credential standard, and we created the code behind Hyperledger Indy, which has also spawned the two code bases of Hyperledger Ursa, which is all the crypto, and Hyperledger Aries, which is the credential exchange protocols. So that's our involvement in this so far. But the thing is here, it's not just an Evanim gig, as I said, anyone can play. So you see how sort of simple and easy this new paradigm is. No more usernames and passwords, no more having to click on all of the squares that have a bus in them and all of that horrible, horrible stuff. Real interaction, peer-to-peer, I am who I say I am, you can verify it instantly, nobody in the middle. So how does it apply to higher education? Well, Jamie, let's move over to you if we can, and you take it from here.
Thank you so much, Andy. Really excited to be able to talk to you today about how we think higher education can really seize this opportunity for self-sovereign identity. Well, first I want to talk about the initiatives that are already going on around the world, and this is just a very small selection of them. But we're seeing almost an explosion of interest of projects, of demonstrators, of initiatives all around the world, from the US and Canada, Africa, UK and Europe, right down to Asia Pacific. And it kind of makes sense. You know, students, if you think about it, their job is to gather credentials about their lives so they can go on and do other things. Students are digital first, very mobile, and often going through kind of a major phase in life. They're engaging with lots of different organizations and groups and initiatives, but yet they're very aware of privacy, security, and their data is stuck in silos right now. So we really believe that SSI could be quite transformational for students, but also for the higher education organizations themselves. Well, let's talk a bit about what specifically the opportunity might be for universities. And we have a very specific view on this. Many of the initiatives so far have looked at credentials for learning, for qualifications credits. And we believe that you should be looking at the student holistically. So the fact that in the morning they're studying, the afternoon they're in a sports club, the evening they need to prove they're over 21 to get into a bar, and the next morning they're applying for a student bank account. So we need to be able to think about credentials in the broader sense and allow students to be able to move seamlessly between these contexts. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from today, is that we can really transform the lives of our students through data and this portable data through SSI. But we can also at the same time deliver significant benefits for institutions. You know, that could be cost savings, improved experiences, increased privacy and compliance, but also, as Andy said, much higher levels of security. So let me break it down into some categories. So the first we think is about really the student life cycle. Students, while they're on campus, doing the course, from matriculating and kind of joining a course, right through to leaving, graduating. So that's, you know, login, onboarding, and so on. The second category is about empowering students with the learning credentials, their qualifications, and so on, to use maybe at other institutions. And then third, life beyond study. You know, you're setting them up for success in their digital lives, moving home, getting a job. So let's unpack that a little bit into a bit more detail. So first, let's look at the student life cycle. As learning is becoming increasingly remote, many more students getting involved, we need to think carefully about onboarding, verification of their data. And of course, student life is much more international these days, interactive across regions and boundaries. And self-sovereign identity has this power to allow organizations to instantly check the source, the integrity, the validity of the data that's being shared. Just like banks are working through these steps for know your customer steps, we need to think about know your student. And not only is this helpful for the college or university, but this is going to be one-click convenience for students anywhere using any device because of these open standards. And not only can students control what data they're sharing, but the organization, the university, and the college can collect less data and can be much more careful about what they're collecting. And there's going to be a fantastic, you know, private audit trail for the student to know what they've shared, what's been asked, and for the organization to be able to prove what they've asked, what they've collected, and why. So we think there's a real compliance benefits here. Once we start thinking about the student life cycle in a bit more detail, you'll see that actually it's not just kind of traditional flat identity, it's authentication, it's login. It's maybe I'm having to present information in person or even calling in. And what we can do is we can think about credentials maybe on a mobile device, like a kind of magical student ID we can use anywhere across the whole university ecosystem and beyond. So that could be logging into a university IT system, a library pass, maybe even shopping on campus. And universities and colleges, they are ecosystems. They're decentralized by nature. Lots of groups, initiatives, systems, buildings. And with this student ID as credentials, we can allow students to be recognized anywhere. Think of it like a supercharged single sign-on. And here's the punchline. We don't need to stitch all of these systems together. We don't need to have kind of clever back-end orchestration and architectures when the individual, the student, carries the data with them. They become the courier, like having an access pass. So there's no more usernames and passwords, like Andy mentioned. Seamless, convenient access is secure, and it complements the existing identity and access management systems that are already in place. Maybe we'll talk a little bit later, but you know, plugging this into Open Identity Connect, plugging this into Active Directory and existing systems on campus. So before we go much further onto the rest of the student lifecycle, we thought it'd be really interesting and helpful just to bring this to life for you. So Andy, do you want to maybe talk through kind of a login experience and how quick and seamless that might be?
Yeah, so we're going to show you another very quick video here, and this is quick. So I'm just going to run it, and then I'll talk about what's actually happened. same scenario, Faber College, I've connected to them already, and I'm coming to log in to some system they have. So let me just run this. Familiar QR code, scan it, you get a challenge, you're logged in. There we go. Probably one of the quickest things that you'll see from a demo perspective. So what's actually happening there? And by the way, rather than seeing that, are you trying to log into the IP address there, you'll see Faber College in a normal scenario. What is happening there? Well, rather than having to have a username and password, what we've already got is a secure connection between me and the university, and we set that up right at the start. And underpinning that secure connection are some decentralized identifiers, or DIDs, that use a version of public key cryptography. So when that challenge happens, I'm being asked to prove I have the private key that was used to set that connection up in the first place. And I can do that. So think of this like three-factor authentication, if you like. I've got the phone, I've got something that I am, which is a biometric, or something I know, which is a PIN code to unlock the phone and unlock the app. And I've also got the private key for this unique connection. But it can be even more sophisticated than that, because if the college has given me a credential, I can also prove that I have possession of that credential, and I can actually pass back some data, like my access rights to particular systems, or my role in the university, and so on. And that can be a fourth factor. So you're now getting really highly sophisticated authentication happening that's universal for everyone, everywhere. And as you can see, no more usernames and passwords needed. So it's phenomenally powerful. So Jamie, back to you.
Thanks very much. So let's kind of build on that, and we're still in the student life cycle. So we've done onboarding and know your student. We've talked about authenticating and login, and now we can talk about communicating. And this is where we get into the real power of SSI, because when the student enrolls, we've created that unique, secure, private peer-to-peer connection, and over which we can do login and over which we can do onboarding. But it's like having a separate hotline, you know, when between the student and the organization, the university. So when the student calls, the university knows it absolutely is the student. And when the university sends a message down that connection, the student knows it has to have come from that organization and no one else. There's no intermediaries, no third parties. And because there's no, it's all open source, open standards, there's no vendor lock-in. So just like I can send an email and it will, whatever email provider you're using at the other end, it will just work. So we've talked about kind of sending identity information, but well, we could send documents, assignments, chat, and it's persistent. So this channel could be used to say, look, the university could say, we need to do an annual check for some bit of data. Can you resend it to us? And the student, the learner, gets that one-click convenience to be able to respond. And we believe this peer-to-peer connection serves as a kind of foundation for a lifelong, private and respectful relationship between the learner and the institution. And there's a, you know, I think about the example of the alumni kind of newsletter. Right now, that's going to maybe mum and dad's house or the address you have when you were learning. Maybe it ends up in the bin, maybe it gets forwarded and lost. But right now, the university or the college can keep in touch with, build this lifelong relationship with, follow the careers, ask for data, share data, message, as long as the learner wants to have that participate. So we think this is a really, really powerful foundation for self-sovereign identity in higher education. So that covers student life cycle. The second category is study creds, study credentials. And this is where a lot of the initiatives that I mentioned before, they've quite rightly been focused on what does a qualification mean with a verifiable credential? How do we structure the data? What does it mean? What are the policies about portability? And that's what this second opportunity is around. But it's not just maybe that flat bit of paper. We can think about what course you went to. Did you attend a certain session? What fieldwork did you do? Every assignment, every mark, every credit. Sometimes this is called micro-credentialing. And the student can hold and present them maybe on their mobile phone, anywhere, at any time. And that becomes really quite powerful. And of course, learning credentials, not just at your university, but also in your private life and right through to employment, become portable. And courses can be combined. And of course, as that scales, then organizations can start to accept each other's credentials. And digital trust is going to scale in a way that we've not really seen before, I think. Academic credential fraud is at least $500 million a year business. Why is that? Well, there's no very easy way to check the documents that are being shared. There's no mechanism to check. So with this approach, with a self-sovereign identity approach, we think not only can we improve the experience security, but we can drastically reduce fraud at the same time for both universities and for students. Let's move on to this third category. And this is where we really broaden the opportunity, because we're not just on campus and we're not just talking about learner creds, but student life is about accumulating credentials and using them beyond study. Students are going through many complex life events, opening bank accounts, getting a job. They move home lots. Guess what? Lots of requests for personal data, lots of forms to fill out. And with self-sovereign identity, you saw it in the demo there, I could apply for a job with one click. And this is about giving students new tools that are kind of shaping private, respected digital relationships, not just for the university or the college, but beyond. And we're starting to see ecosystems emerge, banks, telcos, retailers, healthcare. And when students participate in those, it really becomes quite interesting. Opening a bank account in less than a minute becomes possible. Well, I can add a student credential to that, and I can now open a student bank account with all those other benefits that come with it. So we think, bringing it together, SSI is really changing the way we think about identity, secure connections, verifiable credentials, new seamless experiences. But we move from kind of digitizing paper processes to real digital transformation inside higher education. And we move from a world of closed identity, where I can use my identity as long as you use it in one of these three places, to open identity, where individuals become, the custodian, the courier of the data wherever it makes sense. And this is just a huge opportunity for higher education more broadly. So that's why I want to make you aware of the higher education initiative that's running and extend an invitation to you all to participate. We think the opportunity is quite simply enormous. Think of every credential for every student across all organizations. And we think that the higher education sector, post-secondaries, colleges are uniquely well placed to really bring this digital credential ecosystem to life and make it possible. We have a ready-made group of eager, intelligent, digitally native groups of people who are concerned about privacy, thinking about data security. And we think this higher education initiative can really take steps forward to make it real. So what does it mean? Well, first and foremost, we're passionate at Evernim about learning by doing. This is about developing real solutions, frankly, in days and weeks. It's about getting off slides and papers. And we think, this is about reducing time to production. It's about connecting and aligning with all the existing initiatives. There's so much great work that's already happened. We're not starting from scratch. And this isn't about being a first mover. The policies are being worked out. The tools are already there. You could really put real credentials in students' hands very, very quickly. I'll talk about that in a minute. Of course, we need to consider the business case. This isn't going to happen on its own. There needs to be, what are the opportunities to reduce IT costs, process costs? One-click efficiency might well be a customer experience business case. Security. We can develop that as part of the initiative. And then lastly, thinking about thought leadership around what true student data portability makes possible. Well, let's talk about what a plan might look like. Well, we think within 60 days, you could be issuing real credentials. In fact, you could be issuing real credentials with some of our software in hours and days, but you could be in a real proof of concept within a couple of months. moving theory into practice. And within 90 days, you could be in a live pilot, really delivering that value for your organization. And that sets you up to move into 2021 by scaling this out and realizing the in-year benefits. Frankly, you know, the ROI here we think is maybe 3 or 4 weeks. You'll be able to work with whatever standard you're working on at the moment. It might be that you're looking at a specific type of course credential, or it might be login. We can help you take whatever data you want to be working with and turn that into credentials and proofs, and then plug that into your existing processes and IT and get you going really, really quickly. So the point here is that the initiative is up and running. We would absolutely be delighted if you come and join us. We already have some incredible brands working with us all around the world on bringing SSI to life. There's a link on that page where you can register to find out more. But we'd be delighted to get started with you in this journey. It looks like there's going to be cohorts in probably the US, one in Canada, EU and UK and Ireland, possibly in Asia Pacific. So we'd love to connect with you and have a conversation about how we can get you started today. So with that, I'll hand back to Andy for us to talk about the next piece.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jamie. Nicely done. And just to let you all know as well, we've got another webinar coming up on the Thursday, the 13th of February. And actually, Jamie, just do you want to just go through who's going to be on this one and what it's going to involve?
Absolutely. So as it says here, this is about making it real. And we want to kind of go one level down on use cases. And there's a term here, governance frameworks. It's one of the most important topics in the higher ed space because it's really underneath this idea of interoperability. So we're going to have our Evanim's Chief Trust Officer, Drummond Reed. And Drummond is our guru in all things governance frameworks and a new term that you're going to hear called trust over IP. He also was one of the authors of the decentralized identifier specification. So he goes really deep on this. But we're delighted to also be joined by Kim Hamilton Duffy from MIT, who's leading the Digital Credential Consortium work. And we'll be talking about her work with a number of universities and how that fits in with use cases and governance frameworks.
Very cool. Thanks, Jamie. And yeah, so mark the date in your diaries for that one. So moving on quickly, floods of questions coming in. And let's go through some of those. If you've got any more that come in as well, please just shout and drop them in the Q&A. So let's have a look at what we've got. 1 second while we have a quick look. Okay, yes. So we've had a few come in on the Q&A, that some came in privately as well. So let me just go through the first one. Can you say more about the secure connection used to transmit private data once a relationship has been established between an SSI user and a platform that supports it? And that's from Devon James. So let's just cover that one. In fact, Jamie, do you just want to cut your video for a sec? Thank you. There we go. So you can see myself as I'm speaking. So then you follow it up, Devon, by saying, I mean the connection used to transmit secure claims. What's the nature of that connection? Okay, well, without going into a massive amount of technical detail, when you saw that QR code scan happening, what happens is my phone, the app on my phone, generates a new public-private key pair. And it creates a new decentralized identifier for this specific relationship. And the other end, the university end, that does the same. And then we exchange those identifiers. So now I have the public key and the endpoint of the university, and the university has the public key and the endpoint of me. That means I can now encrypt some information using the public key, which is unique just to our relationship, and send it to them. Only they can decrypt it, and vice versa. They can encrypt some information to me, and only I can decrypt it. So it's pretty standard public key cryptography with some bells and whistles, in that we don't need some central authority to do this for us. We don't need a connection broker. we can do it ourselves. And that's one of the big jumps that happens. Now, this connection, it doesn't imbue any trust, okay? It's a secure pipe, but I still don't know who's at the other end. How do I find out? I send a proof request and I say, please prove who you are, and you give me a proof back through this channel. It's signed in particular ways that let me then verify that that is authentic. Again, I can verify it's authentic without having to contact the issuer of that data to you. So that means you don't need APIs everywhere to thousands of different passport authorities or universities around the world. It becomes highly efficient from an architectural perspective. So I could talk about this for days, but we've got a bunch of other questions. However, what I'd like to do is point you to a resource that's available for you. We've got loads of white papers. As I said, we've got webinars as well on our YouTube channel. But somebody else asked the question, Rodrigo Vargas actually said, what if I lose the wallet, right? This is the most common question we get. What if I lose my phone? Now, there's a whole paper on this, which I think is called What If I Lose My Phone? And the link went in, and I'm hoping, Alex, maybe you could just pop it up again, maybe in the chat. It's on our resources page on our website, and it goes into a lot of detail about what you can do. But let's turn it around the other way. What if you lose a physical credential like your passport? What do you do? We haven't got a backup passport, right? So already digital credentials are a step ahead. If I can restore a backup of my digital credentials onto a new phone, I'm off and running. But then what happens to the old phone, right? How is that protected? Well, first of all, you've got a biometric, you've probably got a passcode as well. But there's many other levels beneath this, such as the ability for an issuer of a credential to revoke it. That becomes really powerful. And then even more advanced, not built yet, but designed, would be the ability for you to revoke your phone's ability to do anything, your lost phone's ability to do anything. So it's actually much better than the physical credentials you're all really comfortable with at the moment. So please read that paper, and oh, there it is. You put the link in the chat. Thanks very much for that, Alex. Let's have a look at the next one. Are these hot comms lines for P2P comms based on Hyperledger channels? From Bran Cop. So good question, Bran. So Hyperledger, I think you're referring to Hyperledger Fabric, right? So Hyperledger is a community project with many open source ledger sub-projects within it. One of those is Hyperledger Fabric from IBM, and they have a little bit more marketing dollars than we do. So everyone thinks Hyperledger is actually Hyperledger Fabric. But Hyperledger is a family of ledgers, and one of those ledgers is Hyperledger Indy. And Indy is the source code for everything we've been talking about here. So it's different to Fabric. It's not about channels. It's about what's called DIDCOM, DID-based communications. So have a look at Hyperledger Indy and Hyperledger Aries, and that's where you'll find the code for that stuff. Let's have another look. Oh, can you speak, Rashmi Salopal, I hope I've got that right. Can you speak about the impact on giving strategy and segmentation that is based on alum profiles and personas? Okay, so profiles and personas, very interesting. We all have different personas in our normal physical lives, right? You know, now I'm being an F&M employee and somebody who knows about self-sovereign identity. When this is finished, I'm going to go down and have my dinner, and I'm you know, husband to my wife, and so on, different persona. Same in the digital world, but we've not had the tools to be able to convey those personas very effectively. With digital credentials and self-sovereign identity, I'm able to display or prove a persona for my university life, and a different one maybe for my personal life, and a different one for my gaming life, because I can segment and separate the data I'm sharing in each of those. And that's one of the beauties of it. Rather than, you know, again, a real big advantage over the over physical credentials, I can take just one bit of a credential, just one attribute, and share just that for one particular reason. And so lots to talk about with personas. I'm just going to, oh, here's another one from Rashmi. Let's throw this over to Jamie. How SSI ensures that the student who is establishing the connection is the actual student and not someone else pretending to be the student. So this is all about the initial onboard, right? Jamie, do you want to cover that?
Yeah, sure. So SSI describes the ability to create a connection and issue and verify credentials. The premise being that anyone can issue anything to anyone else and anyone else can verify it. And the basics behind Hyperledger Indy is that should work for any person, any organization, or anything. It doesn't govern the rules of making sure the issuer knows exactly who they're issuing to. So just like today, with a bank, they will say, please give me 2 sources of address. One of those sources might be a utility bill from an energy supplier. The bank at that moment is trusting that the energy supplier got it right and they issued the right bill to the right person. So the same thing needs to be true here. There needs to be agreements about making sure that when you're relying on data, you know who issued it and the circumstances under which they issued it. So we're not at this point describing all the rules that must be in place before you issue anything, because you could be issuing a library pass or you could be issuing a passport. And the circumstances for both of those things will be different. So for some organizations, it might be enough just you can log in as you do today to go through existing security and then we'll issue a credential. For others, it might be you need to show up face to face, but you do that once. That's the only and last time you need to do that. And then you have this private peer-to-peer connection. There's more we'll follow up after the webinar on other things. You can step up the phone to make sure that you've got the right biometric or the right face when you're doing checks. So we can share that after the webinar. But in simple terms, it's up to the issuer to make sure they're satisfied before they issue credentials.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Very cool. So that onboarding question is one that comes up a lot, and it is essential, but it's not up to the tech to get it right. There's both human trust and cryptographic trust here, and the tech gives you the cryptographic trust, and the human trust comes through existing mechanisms that are already out there. So next one up, someone called Anonymous has asked this one. Considering that you use Hyperledger, is data stored on blockchains or other private distributed ledgers? So let me just take that one quickly. So the answer is no, but let me qualify that. Some of the initial efforts around the identity on the blockchain involved putting personal data on a permanent indelible ledger. That's a really bad idea for a whole number of reasons, not least the fact that you can never delete it, and you can't change it, and it's like just publishing a global super cookie that will track you everywhere. So with SSI and these protocols that sit underneath it, the data exchange happens completely off ledger, and there is no trace or record of that data on any ledger anywhere. The ledger is a really, really simple thing. Actually, it's used for not very much. It forms a smallish part of the overall solution, but a very important one. The ledger is there as a store of the public keys of credential issuers, and that's pretty much it. Now, you could store public keys of credential issuers in an Excel spreadsheet, or you could put them on Facebook, but then everyone would need to trust that Excel spreadsheet or Facebook or whatever, which clearly is not going to happen. So the store of issuer public keys needs to have certain capabilities. It needs to be, first of all, run by many organizations, not just one, so you can't just have it unilaterally switched off. It needs to be highly tamper resistant, and it needs to be chronologically ordered. So you know you're getting the latest version of any key. And that's really a description of what a distributed ledger is. So that's all it's used for. And the beauty of this is that the standards, particularly the DID standard, enables you to point to whichever store you want, whether it's an IPFS store or it's a sovereign ledger or an Ethereum ledger or Bitcoin and so on. It can point anywhere you want to. So I encourage you to have a look at the DID standards for that. And also we have a paper called What Goes on the Ledger, and that will tell you why certain decisions have been made about what goes on the ledger and what doesn't. but personally identifiable information is a no-no. So the beauty is all the data exchanges happen at the edge, no record of them in the middle, on a ledger anywhere. Let's have a look at what else we got here. Right. Oh, this Jamie, do you want to take this one from Ron Horn? Hi, Ron. Theoretically, SSI makes sense. Oh, thank you for that. However, doesn't this require the institution to sign up to a consortium? Are there any US institutions currently using SSI for student population? Lastly, if a student has established their self-sovereign identity, they will only be able to pass their credentials onto an institution that's part of the consortium. So this is open versus closed. Jamie, this is right up your street, so far away.
Absolutely. So there's actually 3 questions in there. So let me pick them off kind of one by one. The first is saying that the institutions who are issuing don't need to be part of a closed consortium. Anyone can issue anything to anyone else. So think of it just like paper. Just like imagine that I'm able to send the paper, issue paper to an individual, and then that individual can then take that paper and use it anywhere. And if you then think about how portable that data becomes. So the individual gets paper from University 1, I can then go to another institution and use it, even if those 2 institutions haven't been part of a consortium or so on. So that's the first part. Think of it as portable as paper as it is today. The second part is that where can it be consumed? Well, it's not just about showing up anywhere, it's about working with those open standards. So anyone in email that speaks SMTP, anyone that speaks the kind of global standard of email, can stand up their own email tool and start receiving email. Same things can be true here. This isn't about any one institution. It's not about Evernym. It's about being able to speak these new protocols and therefore being able to receive the credential as long as you meet that W3C standard, for example, for verifiable credentials. So we deeply believe that this is about an open ecosystem, not a closed one. We'll follow up after the webinar with a bit more detail about those open standards and why we think it creates open ecosystems and not closed ones.
Cool, thank you, Jamie. So open is the key here. Getting out of silos and making everything open is the way forward. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Let's have a look. Crikey, so many questions come in. I'm just going to whiz to this one to John Harrison. Hi, John, how are you doing? Do you see any scenarios where there is a need for a permanently online credential store? Perhaps delegation. Okay, so let's cover that one. The answer is yes, actually. In fact, there's some interesting approaches here. Microsoft has actually been leading on some of this around something they call identity hubs. So what we've been talking about so far is credentials at the edge, credentials on the phone. But if you're an organization like a university, firstly, does the university possess a phone and has it got fingers to press buttons? Well, probably not. So organizations will have digital wallets with credentials in. So an organization can have credentials as well, as can a thing like a car. But in this situation, there could also be certain data types that don't suit being put into a credential, like very large data sets, like an MRI scan, for example, or a thesis. And other data types that change really regularly, such as blood pressure monitoring, for example. Those don't really suit being put into credentials either. So what you would probably want is somewhere to store those. And what you do is you provide delegated access to that store. And you can provide, amazingly, you can provide delegated access through using credentials, saying, here's a credential that you can use to access this store, and the store will say, please prove you can, you've got access from Andy to go to that store. So the answer is yes, actually. And the combination of what are being called personal data stores and credentials at the edge is certainly a really interesting one. And like I say, Microsoft doing a lot of work in this. Microsoft really heavily into the whole decentralized identifier space as well. And we've done some cracking projects with them already. Let's go on. Okay, Bran again, actually, Bran. If the issuer of the credential can revoke it, then this cannot be called full self-sovereign. Well, Bran, that is pretty feisty. So I'm going to disagree with you on that. Now, revocation, let's say you're a doctor. And this is a real example. We have a project right now with the National Health Service and a company called True, TRUU.ID. Have a look at them around doctor identity. And if a doctor gets convicted of malpractice, they get struck off, right? There has to be a way for issuers to revoke credentials. If you go on a terror watch list, your passport's going to get revoked, right? It may be that they come and take your physical passport, or maybe they don't, but you can't use it anymore. So when a credential is revoked by an issuer, it might be you've got a bank account and you're convicted of fraud or something like that. Lots and lots of use cases where revocation is really essential. You don't lose the credential, you still have it, but you can no longer prove it is not revoked. Okay, so I'd argue it the other way around, that it's a vital part of being self-sovereign because it allows me to carry the credential, but it also allows the issuer to revoke it. Now, people can revoke things already. There's already controls in place in all sorts of different ways. And the human trust layer sits on top of this, which is how do you trust that the issuer is doing the right thing? And the best issuers will float to the top. So let's move on. In fact, we could probably go on a bit longer. So many questions, we can probably go on a bit longer. So let's just keep going through these because you guys are fantastic. There's a whole bunch of really cool stuff in here. So I think we've covered that one off. Other than the phone, where else can I store my self-sovereign identity? And what if my friend, this is Rodrigo, what if my friend with access to my phone tries to impersonate me in front of the university? Okay, so great questions as well. Impersonation, what could happen? Well, first of all, it's important to notice that we're reducing the attack surface here from a huge database with millions of credentials in it to a single edge device with a person. So if you wanted to impersonate me, it starts to get quite hard. You know, there's no way you can use a username and password I've used over there and try it over here, because that doesn't happen anymore. Okay, you've got to get me and you've got to get my phone. If I've got a friend with access to my phone, Rodrigo, you're a really trusting person. Let's take this back to what would you do today? If you give your friend your student ID card, they can go and do something with it. They could do that today. There's lots of things that can happen today. But let's just take this a step further. Let's say you're consistently found to be colluding with your friend to try and defraud something, okay? Then we go back to this revocation thing. If you're found to be defrauding something, they can revoke your credentials' ability to do anything. So if your friend is doing it behind your back, that's a different kettle of fish, but they're going to need to have your eyeball or your face or your fingerprint and open the phone and so on and so on. So you know, it's not impossible, but it's getting really, really hard. So here with SSI, it's vastly better than the current status quo. We're not solving the gun to your head situation. If someone comes and puts a gun to your head and says, open your phone and give it to me so I can pretend to be you to get a discount at the student union, you're probably going to give them the phone. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's have a look, see. Oh, I answered that one already. Happy Path. Jamie, might come to you on this one if you're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
The Happy Path connecting with a QR code might involve a smartphone with a camera and a user who can see. What's a simple way for someone who can't see to still participate? That is a great question, actually.
Very good question. So I think, you know, going back to the basics of this, we want anyone to be able to issue anything to anyone else. But also we want the widest range of people possible to be able to hold credentials. Now that might mean that we don't have a $1,000 smartphone. So we need to think very carefully about where are the credentials and where are the digital keys being kept. So there are groups working very, very hard on concepts of guardianship. Because if you think about it for more than 10 seconds, you realize that old people, vulnerable populations, babies, dogs, cars don't have the ability to, do biometrics and hold pins to open phones. So there's a lot of work going on guardianship, and we'll send out a link to that after the webinar. But one of the first populations being looked at is those with dementia. So how can we help and empower them with credentials and help those who are around them with power of attorney, hospital care. But there's some really great work going on for those who don't have a smartphone or those who are incapable of acting on their own behalf. So that's the answer is guardianship. And we'll send more information about that after.
Cool, thanks, Jamie. And QR codes is just one way of establishing a connection. You could create plenty of other ways if you wanted to. Okay, so here's another interesting one from anonymous attendee. Hi, anonymous. Do certain issuers have more authority for verifying the identity? Now, again, let's just get the terminology precise here. In this world of SSI, there are three parties normally. There's an issuer of credentials, passport office, university, etc. There's the holder of credentials, student, and there's the verifier of the credentials, which could be the same as the issuer, or it could be a bank or a nightclub or whatever else. Okay, so issuers, holders, verifiers. So as at the moment, anybody at the moment can print a piece of paper and give it to you. It could have a ticket for a concert on it. It could be a driving license. It could be anything. Okay, so it's the same situation here. You will, the issuers who issue physical credentials at the moment will be able to all issue digital credentials. And why wouldn't they? Because people will demand it. And in the same way that issuers have different standing at the moment in the physical world for physical credentials, they will have different standing for digital credentials. What SSI is giving you is the ability to know who issued the credential, and then it's not being tampered with, right? That's what it gives you. You still have to have human trust in the issuer. So I might trust the UK Passport Office a lot more than I would trust Jamie's Corner Shop for issuing an identity credential. But Jamie's Corner Shop could issue a loyalty credential to me, and I could use that back at Jamie's Corner Shop, and they just need to trust themselves. So yes, absolutely, you'll have lots of different layers, just like you do at the moment. The technology doesn't restrict who issues and who verifies, okay? Just like anyone can print anything and give it to anyone at the moment. It gives you the tools to have these cryptographic superpowers, but you need that human trust layer on top, and that comes in the form of governance frameworks like the ones that already exist. Like Visa is a big governance framework that says this is what a Visa card looks like, this is how a bank becomes a member, if a transaction happens like this is what happens, and so on. So that hopefully will cover that one. Okay, what else have we got? Loads. I think we'll do another couple. I'm just trying to find a nice one here. Oh, Bran is on form. Hey, Bran. Can we state the following to be true? The only true self-sovereign identity can be implemented via a public blockchain. Right. So let's cover that. Remember here that in the world of SSI, the blockchain or ledger, all it is a store of issuers' public keys and a few other bits that issuers put on there, like revocation registers, for example. That store can be anywhere. So when you say a public blockchain, well, normally you have a couple of vectors for blockchains. You've got who runs them, and you've got who can access them. So you've got the people running them. Is it completely open? Anyone can run a node like Bitcoin, or is it permissioned? So only certain people organizations who qualify or abide by certain rules can run them. And that's the case with Sovereign and some other ledgers. And then you get access, which is either public or private. So I would say that the access should be public. Anyone should be able to access the issuer's keys to enable them to verify any credential issued by anybody. And this is persistent as well. This is why ledgers are really good. So if you're a student from a university in Kuwait that's been blown up in the Gulf War, all the records are gone. As long as that issuer's public keys are still on the ledger, which is, the whole point of ledgers is that they're persistent and indelible and then tamper resistant. As long as their keys are still there, I can prove that I got a degree from that Kuwaiti university, even though the university no longer exists. So it gives you a huge amount of persistence with the credentials you've got. So I would say, Bran, a publicly accessible blockchain is really good. Whether it's a permissioned or an unpermissioned network, I would say it kind of doesn't matter. It happens that Sovereign has been designed just for this, and they've decided to make that a permission network because they want some rules to ensure that everyone can have trust in how that network is run. Okay, we'll just do one more before we finish up for the day. Let's have a look. Okay, Brian, you've asked another one, really good one, but I'm going to give someone else a go. Oh, actually, I think I just answered. When is the Sovereign network better than a permission network? Okay, the Sovereign network is a permission network. You need to be permitted to run a node. But the secret of it is, not the secret, the benefit of it is you don't need to run a node to use it, okay? It's a bit like DNS, right? The DNS network exists. It will translate any URL into an IP address, but you don't need to run a DNS server to use DNS. So it's the same with Sovereign as a public permission network. You can just use it. Any more? Let's have a look. Oh, Brian, right, you're on fire. We'll get as many answers to these as we can. Let's just do one more. Jamie, one for you. As employers move towards skills-based hiring, do you see skills as credentials evolving? Do you want to handle that one?
Absolutely. That's exactly right, where we think self-sovereign identity becomes very valuable indeed. That those skills can be attested to by maybe a formal organization like a university, or an informal one, maybe in your private life or in your community. And then as employers are looking for candidates, they can assess and say, please prove to me that you have these skills, rather than you have certain experience, or you have, getting away from attestations of my address or my demographic or my age. So it makes skills-based hiring completely possible and completely portable. So for the first time, this becomes the plumbing that makes skills-based hiring completely possible. And we think that's a really exciting shift. And it takes us out of higher education into recruitment, into employment, and changes potentially the HR function more broadly. So absolutely is the short answer. And we're excited to talk about that on our next webinar, actually.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, Jamie. I'm just going to do one more. I can't resist this one before we close. Yeah, Rodrigo was asking, I don't know if he's still on actually, but was asking if a follow-on to the question about impersonation. My friend may be answering an exam for me. Okay, now this gets really interesting. You could, if you wanted to, have the university do a biometric check that the person that is on the other end is the same person. Okay, so that's perfectly feasible to do as well. Same sort of thing for border crossings. You need to know, is the person, it is their face, and so on. So you could add a biometric element into this as well. So we're going to need to jump off now. Thanks all for staying on that bit longer as well, and thanks for coming. Fantastic to have you all on here. We will be sending out a recording of this, along with a pack, an information pack, and a bunch of the questions and answers that we've covered as well. Reminder about the February the 13th webinar. There'll be a big banner on top of evanim.com for you to register for that, same as you did for this one. Plenty more to read. There's a vast amount to read here as well, both on our website and just generally on the internet around SSI. So thanks very much for coming. Jamie, thanks for participating as well, and Alex running all the Q&A. We wish you the best of your day. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much. See you later.